You come out of these companies, you're not in the hiring seat. Somebody else hires people. You probably have a say whether you want this team or a team member or not. But then here you are in Nutanix, you're hiring people, you're paying them. You're keeping an account of what happens to the investor's money or your bootstrapped fund, whatever that is. And then how did you train yourself to hire the right people? You have playbooks literally on everything.
So I would say
I
it took me a
this.
while. I made plenty of mistakes. I still make mistakes. But over time, I found that hiring technical talent is easier. Or I would say vetting technical talent is easier because you can ask them some programming puzzles or what have you, right? But hiring the non-technical talent or even people within the technology like management, for instance, is much tougher because you're not going to ask them like puzzles or what have you. So how do you hire such people?
How do you hire?
Yeah, exactly. So what I do now is, well, first of all, you do what I call pre-interview checks. So if you take a step back, for every role that you hire for, you should write down the competencies you're looking for, right? Or attributes, if you may. And I divide up these competencies into 3 parts, right? Or 3 scorecards, if you will, right? One is called the pre-interview scorecard. So this is literally, what you would look in a resume or maybe what you do in a phone screen.
Yeah.
Right. So if the resume isn't quite telling the story that that's appropriate story for you, it's probably a waste of time to interview the person.
Yeah.
And you just end up, interviewing way more people. And sometimes you may even make a mistake. Because the big mistake people do is they hire based on chemistry. Chemistry is only one of the competencies you look for.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm hiring you for a role,
yeah,
and of course I'm interested in the fact that me and you can get along and we have good chemistry. But there are like 10 other things that this role needs that are outside of chemistry.
Yeah.
So it's good to write all those down because if I don't, then I'll basically end up hiring on chemistry and then find out later that maybe you cannot do those 9 other things.
Yeah, like for example, an account manager has different traits versus a VP of sales versus a CTO. And
so even within an account manager, so let's say I'm hiring an account manager.
Right.
Maybe my company is an enterprise company, but this person comes from a consumer background.
Right.
And so it's not quite a match.
It's not.
Maybe I should just figure that out based on his resume, right? But I will not unless I have some scorecards, some criteria around that, right? So that's where all these things go in my pre-interview scorecard.
Yeah.
And if I'm hiring an account manager in sales, the person needs to have these traits.
What if they have a short learning curve? What if they're very good in learning things? How do you know that? Or how do you know?
Yeah, so if that is important in the role, it's not important in all roles, right? I don't want to hire a person when it's not important in that role to learn fast. Maybe it's okay, the person has learned a few things in their past jobs and I'm only hiring for that. I'm not really interested in them being able to acquire new information fast. I mean, there are kind of roles, every role has a set of competencies, right? But if it is important that they learn fast, maybe in an account executive role, it is a good trait to have because after all, they maybe, our technology is new and they need to learn it fast. And so you would actually ask them questions around that. So you need to orchestrate your interviewing around those competencies.
Correct.
So if one of the competencies is that they need to be able to learn fast, then you ask them, what are some of the new things you learned at your last job?
Yeah.
How much time it took, right? What mistakes you made. So all through that, it'll bring out hopefully, whether they look forward to learning things or, and then there are of course reference checks and you verify whether, those things that the person said are actually true or not.
Yeah.
So those become the 3 scorecards, the pre-interview scorecard and the set of things you check for in the interview.
Yeah.
And then what you check for in references. And once you have all those lined up, then there's a fairly high chance that you ended up hiring the right person. Even there, I don't think any hiring process is 100% bulletproof.
Yeah.
Even there, you make mistakes.
Because people change with time.
People change. Maybe they were great at their former company and maybe they're not as great over here. Look, interviewing is also not going to be a 10 on 10. Like if I interview someone, maybe they do 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
So I decide to take a bet. that, okay, the person did 7 out of 10, maybe we can teach the remaining, but then we are unable to.
Yeah.
And those things that they're missing on turn out to be rather important.
Yeah.
Or we gave them a high score on some traits that actually end up being low.
Yeah.
So we made a mistake in assessing, right? So mistakes
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
And that's where, it's important to also nurture talent.
Yeah.
Help them learn and grow. But eventually, if they're not getting there where you want them to be, and it's a showstopper of sorts for the company, then you also performance manage. It's also important. People shy away from that, right? They almost look at performance management as you're almost banishing the person to some dungeon. Well, they will be much happier at another place. It's not like you're killing their livelihood or anything like that.
Yeah.
They'll be happier at a place where their skills are a better match.
Yeah.
And you can then hire a person who's a better fit for this role, right?
Yeah.
And so it's also very important to keep that in mind. It's not just hiring is not just a one-way decision.
Yeah.
It's also continuously evaluating how good the people are
And
who the people are who may not be cutting it.
Yeah, hiring the wrong people is expensive.
Yeah,
especially in a startup. Every
so
dollar
we try
counts.
to. My playbook is to try to cut down on that expense by having a strong
Correct.
hiring process, like I
Correct.
described.
Yeah.
But like we also discussed, there's no foolproof hiring process.
Yeah.
So some of them, and by the way, even if when we hired them, they're the right fit they're absolutely great. Will they continue to be great 3 years from today when the company scales, right? Let's say your company is growing heavily. They may no longer be a fit 3 years from today, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, you may have to make a hard decision and cut them. So just because the hiring went okay, doesn't mean that 3 years later it won't be a different outcome.